In this tutorial, I'll walk you through how to get started with Google Tag Manager. We'll create a new Google Tag Manager account and web container, add Google Tag Manager to a website, configure Google Analytics as our first tag, test everything using preview mode, and publish our changes. By the end of this tutorial, you'll have Google Tag Manager installed, you'll understand how it works, and you'll know how to start managing tracking on your website. Before we jump into the setup, let me quickly show you what we're working towards. By the end of this tutorial, we'll have Google Tag Manager installed on our website, Google Analytics collecting data through Tag Manager, and we'll have tested everything using preview mode before publishing our changes. Along the way, you'll also learn how tags, triggers, and variables work together, so you'll understand not just what to do, but why you're doing it. Let's start by taking a quick look at how Google Tag Manager works. Google Tag Manager lets you manage marketing and analytics tags on your website in one place. For example, you might want to use Google Analytics to understand how people find and use your website. You might also want to measure conversions in Google Ads, add the Meta Pixel, or use another marketing platform. Without Google Tag Manager, you would normally add the tracking code for each of these platforms directly to your website. As your website grows, this can quickly become difficult to manage. You need to remember which tags have been installed, where they've been added, and when they need to be updated. Instead, we can install Google Tag Manager on our website and then manage our tags inside Tag Manager. You can think of Google Tag Manager as a layer between your website and the platforms you're using. It doesn't replace Google Analytics, Google Ads, or other platforms. Instead, it gives you a centralized way to add and manage the tags used by those platforms. Before we create our account, let's cover 4 important terms you'll come across in Google Tag Manager. These are tags, triggers, variables, and containers. Let's start with tags. Think of a tag as an instruction that tells Google Tag Manager to perform a particular task. For example, a tag might send a page view to Google Analytics, record a conversion for Google Ads, or send an event to the Meta Pixel. Next, we have triggers. A trigger decides when a tag should fire. For example, we can use a trigger to fire a tag on every page of our website. Or we could create a trigger that only fires when someone views a particular thank you page, clicks a button, submits a form, or completes another action. Then we have variables. Variables are reusable pieces of information. Instead of entering the same value over and over again, we can store it in a variable and reuse it whenever we need it. For example, a variable might contain your Google Analytics measurement ID, the URL of the page someone is viewing, or the text of a link they clicked. We can use variables in our tags and triggers, which makes our setup more flexible and easier to manage. Finally, we have the container. A container stores the tags, triggers, variables, and other settings you configure for your website. Putting that all together, the container holds everything. Tags tell Google Tag Manager what to do, triggers tell tags when to fire, and variables provide information we can use. Now that we understand the core concepts, let's create our Google Tag Manager account. To do this, we can either head to the Tag Manager product page on the Google Marketing Platform site, or you can head directly to tagmanager.google.com. I've included a link to this page in the description below this video. Since I'm on the Google Marketing Platform site, let's click Start for Free. If you've already signed into your Google account like me, you'll immediately be prompted to create a new Tag Manager account. If you head directly to tagmanager.google.com and you've already created a Tag Manager account, you'll just need to click the button on the top right corner to create a new account. Okay, so first we need to name our account. You can think of the account a bit like a folder. It's used to store one or more containers. Generally, I recommend creating a separate account for each business or organization you manage. I'm going to name my account Loves Data. Next, we need to select our country. You can also choose whether you want to share anonymous data with Google. This setting is optional. Now we need to name our container. I recommend using the name or domain of the website where you're going to install Google Tag Manager. This makes the container easy to identify later. I'm going to name mine Loves Data Website. Since we're going to use Google Tag Manager on a website, let's select Web under Target Platform. You can see there are also options for iOS, Android, AMP, and server-side containers, but we're going to focus on a standard website container. Now let's click Create. We need to review the terms of service and accept the terms. Now we click Yes on the top right corner. Our account and container have now been created, and we're given two pieces of code. The first piece of code is the main Google Tag Manager container code. It needs to be added to every page on your website, and ideally should be installed as high as possible in the head tag. The second piece of code is the no-script version of the container. While Google includes this in the installation instructions, most tags rely on JavaScript, so the main container code is the important part of the installation. Most website platforms let you install Google Tag Manager using either a built-in integration or a plugin, and most will also let you add custom code as an option too. The exact steps depend on the platform you're using. If you're using a platform like WordPress, you can use a plugin. Some platforms include a built-in Google Tag Manager integration, while others let you add the Google Tag Manager code directly to your website. I've included links to my dedicated tutorials for the most popular platforms in the description below this video. Let's close this. I also want to highlight that if you're using a plugin or built-in integration, you typically just need the container ID. You can find this at the top of the interface. Once Google Tag Manager has been installed, we're ready to configure our first tag. To do this, let's navigate to Tags. Now let's click New. The first thing we need to do is name the tag. A clear naming convention will make your container easier to manage as you add more tags. I'm going to name this tag Google Tag GA4. Now select Tag Configuration. Choose Google Tag as the tag type. The Google Tag can send data from your website to Google Analytics using the measurement ID from our Google Analytics data stream. To get our measurement ID, let's head to Google Analytics. I'm already signed into my Google Analytics account, and I've selected the property I want to use, so let's navigate to Admin. Under Data Collection and Modification, let's select Data Streams. I only have one data stream in my Google Analytics property, so let's select this. On the top right corner, we can see our measurement ID. It begins with G followed by a dash and a combination of letters and numbers. Let's copy this. And let's head back to Google Tag Manager. We could paste the measurement ID directly into the Tag ID field, and for a small website, that would work perfectly fine. However, I'm going to create a variable to store it. This lets us reuse the measurement ID in other tags. It also means that if we ever need to change it, we only need to update the variable in one place. To do this, let's select the variable icon next to the Tag ID field. And let's click the plus sign on the top right corner. Let's name the variable GA4 Measurement ID. And select Variable Configuration. Now let's choose Constant as the variable type. We can now paste the measurement ID into the Value field. And let's click Save. Our variable containing our measurement ID has now been added to the Google tag. This is a simple example of how variables work. Instead of entering the measurement ID directly into the tag, our tag is using the value stored in the variable. Next, we need a trigger. Below tag configuration, we can see triggering. And for our Google tag, we can see a trigger has been automatically selected for us. This is the initialization all pages trigger. This tells Google Tag Manager to fire the tag on every page of our website before most of the other tags in our container. In most cases, I recommend using the initialization trigger because it lets Google Analytics load as early as possible. If you're using a consent management platform or cookie banner, consent-related tags should be configured to fire before your analytics and marketing tags. Consent requirements will depend on your website, where your visitors are located, and the regulations that apply to your organization. I've included a link to my consent mode tutorial in the description if you'd like to learn more. Okay, our Google tag now uses our measurement ID variable along with the initialization all pages trigger. Now let's click Save. We've configured our first tag, but it hasn't been published to the live website yet. Before publishing any changes in Google Tag Manager, you should always test them. To do this, let's click Preview on the top right corner. This opens Tag Assistant in a new window. Now we can enter the URL of the website where you installed Google Tag Manager. Then we click Connect. Our website opens in a new tab. We can see the Tag Assistant panel on the page, which confirms that the website is connected for testing. If the connection doesn't work, double-check that Google Tag Manager has been installed correctly on your website. Now let's view another page on the website so we can check that the tag fires as we navigate. To check this, let's open the Tag Assistant tab. We can see the pages we've viewed listed on the left. And when we select an event, we can see the tags that fired and the tags that didn't fire. Our Google tag appears under Tags Fired, so we know the trigger worked and the tag was loaded on the page. Now let's select the other page we viewed. We can see the Google tag fired again. This confirms the tag is running as we navigate between pages. At the top of Tag Assistant, you will also see the measurement ID we used for our tag. Selecting this lets us view the specific events being sent to Google Analytics. If enhanced measurement is enabled in your GA4 data stream, you might also see additional events being collected, including scrolling, outbound clicks, file downloads, and other actions. Don't worry if you see additional events or tags in Tag Assistant. The exact details will vary depending on how your website has been configured. For now, we're just checking that our Google tag is firing correctly on each page. Testing in preview mode is one of the most important steps when using Google Tag Manager. It can help you identify a missing trigger, an incorrect variable, or another configuration problem before it affects your live tracking. Now that we've tested our tag, we're ready to publish it. To do this, let's head back to Google Tag Manager. Before publishing, there's one important point to be aware of. If the same Google tag is already installed directly on your website, you shouldn't leave both installations running. Otherwise, you could have one Google tag installed directly on the website and another firing through Google Tag Manager. This can result in data being sent more than once. Once you've confirmed that Google Analytics is working correctly through Google Tag Manager, remove the previous installation so that you're only using one method. You should also be careful if your website platform has a built-in Google Analytics integration. Make sure it isn't installing the same Google tag separately. Since Google Analytics isn't already installed on my site, I'm ready to publish the new tag. To do this, let's click Submit on the top right corner. Before publishing, quickly review the workspace changes to make sure you're publishing exactly what you expect. Now we enter a name for the version of the container we've been working on. I recommend using a short description of the changes you've made. For example, I'm going to enter added GA4 Google tag. You can also add a more detailed description if you like. Using clear version names is a helpful habit because Google Tag Manager saves a history of your published container versions. This makes it easier to understand what changed if you ever need to revert to an earlier version. Okay, when you're ready, click Publish. It can take a moment for Google Tag Manager to publish our changes. Our container has now been published. This means the Google tag is active on our live website and data will be sent to Google Analytics. Before we finish, let's quickly recap what we've covered. We created a Google Tag Manager account and web container. We installed the container on our website. We learned that tags tell Google Tag Manager what to do, triggers control when tags fire, and variables provide reusable information. We then configured Google Analytics using the Google tag, tested our setup with Tag Assistant, and published the container. You now have everything you need to start using Google Tag Manager. As you become more familiar with Google Tag Manager, you'll be able to measure clicks, form submissions, conversions, e-commerce transactions, and more. And you'll be able to do it without continually editing your website's code. You can find links to my other Google Tag Manager tutorials and my complete Google Tag Manager course in the description below this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.